There's a possibility that Britain will recognize Palestine. This formal recognition of the Palestinian state would not be merely a symbolic gesture, but a potential catalyst for ending one of the most entrenched conflicts in modern history. At stake is not only the fate of Palestinians and Israelis, but the credibility of international law, humanitarian principles, and our own moral standing as a nation. The two-state solution has been the official diplomatic goal for decades. It was enshrined in the Oslo Accords in the 1990s. Yet for 30 years, the vision of two states living side by side has been allowed to wither. Settlement expansion, political division, repeated wars have made the idea appear moribund. And today Gaza is in ruins, the West Bank is fragmented by settlements and checkpoints, and the peace process is, in all but name, dead. And now the French President, Emmanuel Macron, is pressuring Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, to act. Macron accepts that recognizing Palestine now could be a catalyst to revive negotiations and to confer dignity and agency on the Palestinian side. Paris believes that only with such recognition can Israel be compelled to take seriously the need for a genuine political solution. London, however, is hesitant. The UK government worries about rewarding Hamas or making a grand pronouncement without conditions that guarantee real change. Yet there is a clear logic to Macron's position. Recognizing Palestine doesn't hand victory to Hamas. On the contrary, it marginalizes Hamas by validating the idea of a legitimate, sovereign and negotiated Palestine state. It empowers moderate Palestinian leaders who would govern such a state on the basis of international law rather than violence. It would also signal to Israel that permanent occupation is not sustainable or acceptable to its allies. By making clear that the world's leading democracies see Palestine as a state in waiting, Britain and France can increase diplomatic pressure for a negotiated end to the war in Gaza and the wider conflict. This isn't about a ceasefire, this is about peace, with a ceasefire as one stage towards that. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is trying to engineer exactly that ceasefire in Gaza while simultaneously offering Netanyahu an amnesty deal to end his corruption trial. Some see this as cynical, a trade of justice for peace. Yet there is, again, an undeniable political logic. If Netanyahu were granted immunity, it might break the hold of his far-right coalition partners who are blocking any deal that would see Israeli troops withdraw from Gaza. Trump's gambit could give Netanyahu just enough political space to accept a ceasefire and negotiate seriously for a peace. Recognizing Palestine would complement such efforts by settling the political horizon of a two-state outcome. Of course, there are risks. Recognition cannot mean a blank check. Britain and France must insist that any Palestinian government renounces terrorism, disarms militant factions, and governs transparently. Equally, Israel must commit to ending settlement expansion, halting military incursions, and allowing genuine Palestinian sovereignty. Recognition should be framed as conditional but credible, an invitation to negotiate in good faith. Finally, we must face the moral horror of Gaza. Over 56,000 Palestinians killed, hospitals bombed, a generation traumatized. To do nothing is complicity. Recognition of Palestine is not an indulgence of terror, but an assertion that Palestinian lives have equal worth, that occupation must end, and that peace requires political, not military solutions. So, to ask this, what is the alternative to recognition? Perpetual war, endless occupation, another generation condemned to violence and revenge? Recognition of Palestine, alongside diplomatic pressure on Israel and Hamas, is not a panacea, but it is the first necessary step to rescue the two-state solution from the grave. And it's time Britain showed the courage to act, lest history remember us not as peacemakers, but as bystanders to tragedy.